She was left alone in the fire until the cowboy carried her out on his back. The scream cuts through the night before the flames do. Jack Brennan is 200 yards away when he hears it, high and sharp, the kind of sound that splits the world in half. He's watering his horse at the creek, thinking about nothing but the coolness of the water and the way the moon sits heavy on the ridge. Then the scream comes again, and he turns. The farmhouse is burning. Not just burning, dying. Orange light claws at the sky like something desperate and alive. Smoke pours black and thick into the stars. The barn beside it groans, wood cracking like bones under weight. Jack doesn't remember dropping the reins. Doesn't remember running. He just moves, boots pounding dirt, chest tight, the heat growing hotter with every step. By the time he reaches the yard, the main house is already gone. Roof collapsed. Walls folding inward like paper. But the barn is still standing. Barely. That's when he sees her. A child. Small. Maybe 8, maybe 9. Standing at the window on the second floor, hands pressed flat against the glass. She isn't screaming anymore. She's just standing there, staring down at him. Her face pale and streaked with soot. Behind her, flames crawl up the wooden walls like living vines, eating everything they touch. Jack doesn't think. He runs. The barn door is already half-burned, hanging crooked on its hinge. He kicks it in, and the heat slams into him like a fist, thick and choking, stealing the air from his lungs. Smoke fills his throat. His eyes burn. He can't see more than a few feet ahead, but he knows where the ladder is. Knows because he helped build this barn 3 summers ago when he was still a ranch hand, still trying to make something honest of his life. He climbs. The ladder is hot under his hands, blistering his palms. The wood creaks and shifts beneath his weight. Below him, something crashes, a beam, maybe, or part of a loft. He doesn't look back. He keeps climbing, one rung at a time, lungs screaming, vision blurring. When he reaches the top, the girl is still standing at the window. She doesn't move when he stumbles toward her. Doesn't flinch when he reaches out. Her eyes are wide and empty, like she's looking at something far away, something he can't see. Jack grabs her shoulders, and she's so small, so impossibly light in his hands. "Come on," he says, but his voice comes out broken, barely a whisper. She doesn't answer. Behind them, the fire roars louder. The wall to their left buckles, collapses inward in a shower of sparks and ash. Jack knows they don't have time for the ladder. Knows they'll never make it down before the whole structure comes apart. So he does the only thing he can. He wraps his arms around the girl, pulls her tight against his chest, and turns his back to the flames. Then he jumps. They crash through the window in a spray of glass and smoke. The ground rushes up fast and hard. Jack hits first, twisting his body so she lands on top of him. The impact drives the breath from his lungs. Pain explodes across his shoulders, his back, his spine. But he doesn't let go. He holds her close and rolls, pulling them both away from the burning barn, away from the heat and the falling embers. They collapse in the dirt 20 feet away. Jack lies on his stomach, gasping, his back on fire. Not from the fall, from the flames. His shirt is burned through. His skin is blistering, raw, and screaming. But the girl is breathing. She's coughing, choking on smoke, but she's alive. He tries to stand, and his legs won't hold him. Tries to speak, and no sound comes. So he just lies there in the dust, one hand still resting on the girl's shoulder, and watches the barn collapse into itself. The whole thing takes maybe 30 seconds. When it's over, there's nothing left but flames and ash and the smell of burned wood hanging thick in the air. Jack doesn't know how long they lie there. Minutes, maybe. Hours. Time doesn't feel real anymore. Eventually, someone comes, a neighbor from down the road, drawn by the fire. Then another. Then the sheriff, a hard-faced man named Dutch Holloway, who's seen too many fires in his years to believe they're all accidents. They pull Jack to his feet, wrap his back in wet cloth. He doesn't feel it. Doesn't feel anything but the girl's hand gripping his sleeve, small and tight, like she's afraid he'll disappear if she lets go. The sheriff asks questions. Jack doesn't have answers. He doesn't know what happened. Doesn't know where the family is. The girl won't speak. Won't even look at anyone but him. They find the bodies 2 days later. The girl's parents. Her older brother. All three of them in what used to be the main house, burned beyond recognition. The sheriff says it started in the kitchen. Says it spread fast. Says sometimes these things just happen on the frontier, where wood is dry and fires are careless. But Jack sees the way Dutch's jaw tightens when he says it. Sees the way he looks at the barn, at the pattern of the burn marks, at the way the fire moved. And Jack knows, the way a man knows things in his bones, that this wasn't an accident. They bury the family on a hill overlooking the valley. The whole town comes. The preacher says words about heaven and mercy and God's mysterious ways. Jack stands at the back, his shoulders wrapped in bandages, watching the girl stand alone beside the graves. She doesn't cry, doesn't speak, just stands there, small and silent, holding a tin locket in her hand. After the funeral, the Reverend's wife offers to take her in. So does the school teacher. So does the widow Thompson, who lost her own daughter to fever the winter before. But every time someone reaches for the girl, she steps back, steps closer to Jack. Her hand finds his sleeve again, holding tight. Looks like she's made her choice, Dutch says quietly, standing beside him. Jack wants to say no, wants to explain that he's not the kind of man who raises children. That he's a drifter, a cowboy with nothing but a horse and a past he's been running from for 10 years. That he doesn't know the first thing about being a father. But when he looks down at the girl, at her small hand gripping his shirt, at the way she looks up at him like he's the only solid thing left in a world that's burned away, he can't say the words. So he doesn't. He just nods. The Reverend's wife brings clothes. The school teacher brings books. Dutch brings a bedroll and a warning. You're responsible for her now, Jack. That means staying put. Means being someone she can count on. Jack nods again. He takes the girl back to his small cabin at the edge of town. Sets up a bed for her in the corner. Cooks what little food he has. She eats in silence. Sleeps in silence. Wakes screaming in the night. And Jack holds her until the nightmares pass. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. She doesn't speak. Not a single word. Not thank you, or help, or even no. Just silence, heavy and unbroken, like something living between them. Jack learns to read her anyway. Learns that she likes her eggs cooked soft. That she's afraid of the dark. That she stands at the window every evening at sunset, staring west toward the graves on the hill, her hand wrapped around that tin locket she never lets go of. He tries to open it once, gently, when she's sleeping. But it's locked tight, and he doesn't have the key. 3 months pass. Then one morning, Jack wakes to find her sitting at the table, the locket open in her palm. Inside is a small photograph, faded, creased, but still clear enough to see. 2 men, young, smiling, arms around each other's shoulders like brothers. Jack's blood goes cold, because he knows one of those men. He knows both of them. The girl looks up at him. Her eyes are steady now, clear. And when she speaks, her voice is small but certain, carrying a weight that makes his chest tighten. Thomas Farrow, she says. And Jack realizes that saving her life was only the beginning of what the fire would cost him. The name hangs in the air between them like smoke that won't clear. Thomas Farrow. Jack feels his hands go cold. Feels his chest tighten like someone's pulled a rope around his ribs. He stares at the girl, at Clara. He reminds himself, her name is Clara, and at the photograph in her small palm. 2 men, younger versions of themselves, smiling like the world was still good. He hasn't heard that name spoken aloud in 10 years. Where did you get that? His voice comes out rough, barely above a whisper. Clara looks up at him with eyes that are too old for her face. My father, she says. He kept it hidden, in a box under the floorboards. She pauses, her thumb brushing the edge of the photograph. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should find Jack Brennan. He said you were the only man he trusted. Jack sits down hard in the chair across from her. His back still aches from the burns, still pulls tight when he moves. But that pain is nothing compared to what's opening up inside his chest right now. Your father knew me? He said you saved his life once. A long time ago. Clara's voice is steady, but her hands shake as she closes the locket. He said Thomas Farrow tried to kill him back then, and that you stopped it. The memory hits Jack like a fist. 15 years ago. A cattle ranch in Kansas. He was just a ranch hand then, barely 20, working alongside a quiet homesteader named William Clark. Thomas was the foreman, Jack's best friend, or so he thought. Until Jack found out Thomas was stealing from the rancher, changing the books, selling cattle on the side, and pocketing the money. When William saw it too, when he threatened to go to the sheriff, Thomas pulled a gun. Jack stepped between them. The fight was fast and brutal. Jack took a knife to the ribs. Thomas took a broken jaw. And William Clark walked away alive, but only barely. The rancher fired Thomas on the spot, ran him off the property with nothing but the clothes on his back, and a warning never to return. Jack thought that was the end of it. He thought Thomas had drifted south, disappeared into Texas or Mexico, became someone else's problem. He thought William had moved on, started a family somewhere safe, built the kind of life that men like Jack only dream about. He was wrong. Your father, Jack says slowly. William Clark. He settled here, started farm. Clara nods. 5 years ago. He said he wanted to get far from the old places, far from the old troubles. Her voice cracks, just slightly. He thought we'd be safe here. Jack closes his eyes. The weight of it settles on him like stones. William had run, had changed his name, started over, raised a family. And somehow, after all these years, Thomas had found him anyway. Found him and burned him alive. The fire wasn't an accident, Jack says. It's not a question. No. Clara's voice is barely a whisper now. I saw him. The night it started. I woke up because I heard voices downstairs. Angry voices. My father and someone else. I looked through the crack in my door and I saw a man standing in the kitchen. Tall. A scar over his eye. He was pouring something on the floor. Something that smelled wrong. Kerosene, Jack says. Clara nods. My father tried to stop him. They fought. And then the man lit a match. He just stood there and watched it catch. Watched it spread. Then he walked out the door like it was nothing. Jack's hands curl into fists on the table. His jaw clenches so tight his teeth ache. He should have known. Should have seen it. Should have asked more questions when he heard about the fire. But he'd been so focused on saving Clara, on keeping her alive, that he hadn't stopped to think about why. My father got us upstairs, Clara continues. Her voice is flat now, distant, like she's telling someone else's story. He, and my mother, and my brother. He said to hide in the barn. Said someone would come. But the fire spread so fast. The house was already gone when I got to the window. And her voice breaks. She stops. Swallows hard. Jack reaches across the table and covers her hand with his. It's the first time he's touched her with anything but necessity. Her hand is so small, so cold. I'm sorry, he says. And he means it deeper than any words he's ever spoken. Clara looks at him with those two old eyes. He wanted you to protect me. That's why he kept your picture. Why he told me to find you if anything happened. He said you were a good man. The kind who keeps his promises. Jack feels something crack open inside him. Because he's not that man anymore. Hasn't been for a long time. He's a drifter. A cowboy with a past full of violence and poor choices. He's the kind of man who runs when things get hard. Who leaves before he can fail anyone. But looking at Clara now, at this child who lost everything because of a fight that started before she was born, he knows he can't run this time. The sheriff, he says. Dutch. Does he know about Thomas? Clara shakes her head. I was afraid. I didn't know who to trust. And Thomas, he's still out there. I've seen him. Jack's blood goes cold. What? 3 days ago. In town. He was standing outside the saloon, watching our cabin. He didn't come close. Just stood there. Like he was making sure. She looks down at the locket. Making sure I was still alive. Jack stands so fast the chair scrapes loud against the floor. His mind is racing. If Thomas knows Clara survived, knows she's a witness, then she's not safe. Not here. Not anywhere close. We need to tell Dutch, Jack says. No. Clara's voice is sharp. Certain. My father said the sheriff can't help. Said there are men in town who'd protect Thomas. Men he paid off back in Kansas. Men who owe him. Jack wants to argue. Wants to say that Dutch Holloway is honest, that he's a lawman who can be trusted. But he knows the frontier. Knows how loyalty works out here. Knows that money and fear can turn even good men into liars. Then what do you want to do? He asks. Clara looks up at him. I want you to keep me safe. Like you promised my father. Like you promised when you carried me out of that fire. Jack never made that promise. Never said the words out loud. But she's right. The moment he ran into those flames, the moment he chose to pull her out instead of letting the fire take her, he made a promise deeper than words. I'll keep you safe, he says. But even as he speaks, he knows the truth. Keeping her safe means facing Thomas Farrow. Means standing between her and a man who's already killed once and won't hesitate to do it again. It means becoming the man William Clark believed he was. The kind who keeps his promises, no matter the cost. Jack just hopes he's still capable of being that man. He packs their things that night. Not much. Clothes. Food. His rifle. Clara's locket. They'll leave at dawn. Head east toward the next town. Find somewhere Thomas won't think to look. Somewhere they can disappear until Jack figures out what to do next. But as he rolls up his bedroll, as he checks his ammunition and oils his gun, he feels it in his gut. Running won't be enough. Thomas didn't come all this way, didn't wait all these years, just to let a witness slip away. He'll come for them. And when he does, Jack will have to choose between the man he used to be and the man he's trying to become. Clara falls asleep in the corner, her hand wrapped tight around the locket. Jack sits by the window watching the dark street outside, his rifle across his lap. The town is quiet, peaceful. But he knows better than to trust the silence. Somewhere out there, in the shadows between buildings, in the doorways of the saloon, Thomas Farrow is watching, waiting. And Jack knows that before this is over, one of them will have to die. The only question is whether Jack can pull the trigger before his past pulls him under. The rider appears at noon, when the sun sits white and merciless overhead. Clara sees him first. She's outside the cabin, feeding the chickens, her hand wrapped around the locket, like always. Jack is inside, cleaning his rifle, when he hears it, the sudden silence. The chickens stop clucking. The feed spills from Clara's hand, scattering across the dirt. And then comes the sound that makes his blood freeze, the locket hitting the ground. He's at the door, before he knows he's moving. The man sits astride a gray horse at the edge of their property, maybe 30 yards away. He's not moving. Just sitting there, still as a gravestone, letting the dust settle around him like he's got all the time in the world. He's dressed in black, black hat, black coat, black gloves. The only color on him is the scar above his left eye, pale and twisted, catching the sunlight. Jack's hands tighten on the rifle. Thomas Farrow. He looks older, harder. The boyish face Jack remembers is gone, replaced by something lean and weathered, carved down to bone and shadow. His mouth curves up on one side, not quite a smile but close. The kind of expression a wolf makes before it strikes. Jack Brennan, Thomas says. His voice carries easy across the distance, smooth and warm like whiskey. Been a long time, brother. Jack doesn't answer. Can't. His throat is too tight. He steps out onto the porch, keeping his body between Thomas and Clara. She's frozen behind him, small and pale, her eyes locked on the rider. You gonna invite me in? Thomas asks. Or are we gonna stand here like strangers? We are strangers, Jack says. His voice comes out flat, cold. Been strangers for 10 years. Thomas's smile widens. That's harsh, Jack. Real harsh. Especially considering all we've been through together. He shifts in the saddle, leather creaking. You remember, don't you? The old days? Kansas? That cattle ranch where we learned what loyalty really means. I remember, Jack says. I remember you stealing. Remember you pulling a gun on an innocent man. Remember breaking your jaw when you tried to kill him. Thomas touches his face, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Yeah, you always did have a righteous streak. Always had to be the hero. He pauses. How'd that work out for you, Jack? You a hero now? Living in this little cabin, playing father to some orphan girl. Clara makes a small sound behind him, half gasp, half sob. Jack raises the rifle, slow and deliberate, until it's pointed square at Thomas's chest. You need to leave. Thomas doesn't flinch, doesn't even blink. He just sits there on that gray horse, hands resting easy on the saddle horn, like having a rifle aimed at his heart is the most natural thing in the world. Can't do that, he says. Got business here. You got no business here. Don't I? Thomas tilts his head. His eyes, pale blue, almost colorless in the sunlight, shift past Jack to Clara. That's William Clark's girl, ain't it? Little Clara. I heard she survived the fire. Heard some cowboy pulled her out just in time. He pauses. That was you, wasn't it, Jack? Always in the right place at the right time. Always saving people who should have burned. Jack's finger moves to the trigger. I said leave. See, here's the thing. Thomas leans forward in the saddle. That fire was supposed to take care of everything. Supposed to close an old account. William Clark knew too much. Talked too much. And I couldn't have that. But then you go and pull the girl out, and now she knows too much too. He shrugs. Can't have witnesses, Jack. You of all people should understand that. She's a child. She's a problem. The words hang in the air like poison. Jack feels rage building in his chest, hot and sharp, the kind that makes men do things they can't take back. His hands shake on the rifle. His vision narrows until all he can see is Thomas's face, that scar, that half smile. You kill her, Jack says quietly, and I'll hunt you to the end of the earth. I'll make you pray for death before I give it to you. Thomas laughs. It's a soft sound, almost sad. There he is. There's the Jack I remember. The one who thinks he's got the moral high ground. The one who thinks God's on his side. He shakes his head. But you and me, Jack, we're not so different. We both got blood on our hands. We both done things we can't wash clean. Only difference is I stopped pretending otherwise. I'm nothing like you. No. Thomas's eyes go cold, hard. Then pull that trigger. Shoot me down, right here. Be the hero you think you are. He spreads his arms wide, making himself an easy target. Go on. Do it. Save the girl. End the threat. Be William Clark's avenging angel. Jack's finger tenses on the trigger. But he doesn't shoot. Can't. Because Thomas is right, shooting an unarmed man in cold blood, even a man like Thomas Farrow, would make him into something he spent 10 years trying not to be. Would drag him back down into the darkness he's been climbing out of. Thomas lowers his arms, that smile returning. That's what I thought. You're too good now, Jack. Too righteous. William Clark broke you of your teeth when he made you his savior. He gathers his reins. But don't worry. I'm patient. I can wait. And when you let your guard down, when you get too comfortable, too trusting, I'll be there. He turns the gray horse, slow and easy, like he's got nowhere to be. Oh, he says, glancing back over his shoulder. One more thing. You might want to ask yourself how I knew where to find you. How I knew about Clara. About this cabin. His smile turned sharp. This town's smaller than you think, Jack. And loyalty costs less than you'd hope. Then he rides away, the gray horse kicking up dust, heading back toward town. Jack watches until he's just a dark shape against the horizon, until even that disappears into the heat shimmer. Only then does he lower the rifle. His hands are shaking. His whole body is shaking. He turns to find Clara standing behind him, tears streaming down her face, the locket clutched tight against her chest. He's going to kill me, she whispers. Jack kneels down in front of her, puts his hands on her shoulders, looks her dead in the eyes. No, he says. He's not. I won't let him. But even as he says it, he knows the truth. Thomas was testing him. Testing to see if Jack would pull the trigger. testing to see what kind of man he'd become. And Jack had failed, had proven he couldn't kill in cold blood, even to protect someone he cared about, had shown Thomas his weakness, his hesitation, his conscience, his unwillingness to become a killer again. Thomas would use that, would wait until Jack's guard was down, until he believed they were safe. And then he'd strike. That night, Jack doesn't sleep. He sits by the window with his rifle, watching the street, watching the shadows. Clara lies in her corner, curled around the locket, her breathing shallow and scared. The town is quiet, too quiet. And Jack knows, with a certainty that sits cold in his gut, that Thomas meant what he said. Someone in this town told him where to find them. Someone they've trusted. The Reverend, maybe. Or the schoolteacher. Or Dutch Holloway, the sheriff Jack thought was honest. He can't trust anyone anymore. Can't rely on the law, or the church, or the good intentions of neighbors. There's only him and Clara, and the choice he knows is coming. Pull the trigger when the moment comes, or lose everything that matters. The question isn't whether Thomas will come back. The question is whether Jack will be ready to do what's necessary when he does, and whether becoming a killer again is the price of keeping his promise. The gun is already in Jack's hand when Thomas kicks down the door. It happens at dawn, when the sky is still gray and the town is silent. Jack is awake, has been awake all night, sitting by the window, rifle across his lap. But Thomas doesn't come through the window, doesn't sneak or slip or creep. He comes straight through the front door like a storm, wood splintering, hinges screaming. Jack fires. The bullet catches Thomas in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. But he doesn't go down, doesn't even cry out. He just staggers, rights himself, and keeps coming, his own gun rising. Clara screams. Jack fires again, misses. Thomas is moving too fast, closing the distance between them in 3 long strides. He slams into Jack, and they go down hard, crashing through the table, scattering chairs. Jack's rifle flies from his hands, clattering across the floor. They roll, fight, fists and elbows and desperation. Thomas's blood smears across Jack's shirt, hot and slick. Jack gets his hands around Thomas's throat, squeezes. Thomas drives his knee into Jack's ribs once, twice, until something cracks and Jack's grip loosens. Thomas pulls free, scrambles back, reaches for his gun. Jack reaches for his. And then Clara is there. She steps between them, small and trembling, her bare feet pale against the dark floorboards. She's in her nightgown, her hair wild around her face. In her hand, the locket hangs open, swinging slightly. Stop, she says. Her voice is so quiet it barely reaches them. But something in it, something broken and certain, makes both men freeze. Jack's gun is pointed at Thomas's chest. Thomas's gun is pointed at Jack's head. They're both breathing hard, both bleeding, both ready to kill. But neither of them moves. Clara looks at Thomas, then at Jack, then back at Thomas. Look, she says, holding up the locket. Inside is the photograph, the one her father kept hidden. 2 men, young and laughing, arms around each other's shoulders. Brothers in everything but blood. Jack recognizes his own face, younger, unmarked by scars or doubt. And beside him, Thomas, before the scar, before the hardness, before the fire. You were friends, Clara says. Her voice shakes but doesn't break. My father told me. He said you saved each other's lives. More than once. He said you were the kind of friends who'd ride into hell for each other. Thomas's jaw tightens. His gun wavers, just slightly. That was a long time ago, he says. It doesn't have to be. Clara takes a step toward him. Jack wants to grab her, pull her back, but he can't move. Can't do anything but watch as this child walks toward a killer with nothing but hope in her hands. My father forgave you. Even after everything. Even after you came to our house that night. Thomas's face goes still. He's dead because he knew too much. No. Clara shakes her head. He's dead because you were scared. Scared he'd tell people what you did in Kansas. Scared you'd lose everything. But he wasn't going to tell. He told me that. Said he'd made his peace with the past. Said everyone deserves a chance to start over. He was lying, Thomas says. But his voice cracks on the words. He wasn't. Clara holds the locket higher. He kept this picture. Kept it safe all these years. Because he still believed in you. Both of you. Believed you could be better than what you'd done. Jack's throat tightens. He thinks of William Clark, quiet, steady William, who never spoke about the past, who built a farm and raised a family and tried to make something good out of all that darkness. Who kept a picture of the two men who'd saved him and nearly destroyed him, because he believed redemption was possible, even for men like them. Put the gun down, Thomas, Jack says quietly. Thomas looks at him, really looks at him, for the first time since he kicked in that door. And Jack sees it, the exhaustion, the weight, the years of running and hiding and becoming something worse than what he started as. If I put it down, Thomas says, you'll kill me. No, Jack says, I won't. You should. I killed her family, burned them alive. Thomas's voice is flat, empty. I deserve to die. Maybe, Jack says, but that's not my choice to make. He lowers his gun, slowly, deliberately, sets it on the floor at his feet. Thomas stares at him like he's gone insane. What are you doing? What I should have done 10 years ago. Jack straightens, his ribs screaming in protest. I should have helped you. Should have stood by you when you were stealing, when you were desperate, when you were making all those bad choices. Instead, I broke your jaw and let them run you off. Made you into an enemy. Made you into this. I made myself into this, Thomas says. But his gun is lowering. Just an inch. Just enough. We all did, Jack says. All of us. You. Me. William. We were young and stupid and we thought violence solved things. Thought loyalty meant blood. But Clara's father figured out something we didn't. He gestures to the girl, still standing between them. He figured out that mercy is harder than revenge. That living with your choices is harder than dying for them. Thomas's gun drops to his side. His shoulders sag. And for the first time, he looks small. Tired. Human. I can't take it back, he whispers. Can't bring them back. No, Jack agrees. You can't. So what do I do? It's Clara who answers. She walks to Thomas, reaches up, and takes his hand. The one not holding the gun, the one bleeding from where Jack shot him. You stop running, she says. You face what you did. You go to the sheriff. You tell the truth. And you let the law decide. She squeezes his hand. My father would want that. He'd want you to have a chance to make it right. Thomas looks down at her. At this child he tried to kill, who's offering him grace he doesn't deserve. Tears slip down his face, cutting tracks through the dust and blood. I don't deserve this, he says. None of us do, Jack says. That's the point. For a long moment, nothing moves. The three of them stand in the wreckage of the cabin. Broken furniture, spilled blood, morning light slanting through the shattered door. Outside, Jack can hear voices. Footsteps. The sheriff and his deputies, drawn by the gunshots. Thomas looks at his gun, then at Clara, then at Jack. And slowly, carefully, he sets the gun down. All right, he says. All right. When Dutch Holloway and his men burst through the door, they find Thomas Farrow sitting on the floor, hands raised. Clara, beside him, holding the locket. Jack stands nearby, his own gun on the ground, his hands open and empty. He's confessing, Jack says to the sheriff. To the fire. To the murders. All of it. Dutch looks between them, confusion and suspicion written across his face. This true, Farrow? Thomas nods. It's true. I killed William Clark and his family, burned them, and I came here to finish what I started. He looks at Clara. But I can't. Won't. Whatever punishment you got, I'll take it. They arrest him there, put him in irons, let him out into the morning light where the whole town has gathered, drawn by the noise and the violence. Jack watches him go, this man who was once his friend, who became his enemy, who might, in some small way, become something better. Clara slips her hand into Jack's. The locket is closed again, safe against her palm. Did we do the right thing? She asks. Jack doesn't answer right away. Because he doesn't know. Doesn't know if mercy is always right, if forgiveness is always possible, if letting Thomas live will heal anything or just delay more pain. But he knows this. They chose something other than violence. Something other than revenge. And maybe that's enough. Yeah, he says finally. I think we did. They stand together on the porch, watching the sheriff's wagon carry Thomas away. The sun is rising now, painting the sky orange and gold. The town is waking. Life is going on, the way it always does, indifferent to the storms that rage inside human hearts. Jack's ribs ache. His hands are bruised. His cabin is destroyed. But Clara is alive. Thomas is alive. And for the first time in 10 years, Jack feels like maybe, just maybe, he's finally become the man William Clark believed he could be. Not a hero, not a savior, just a man who chose mercy when violence would have been easier. And in the end, that might be the bravest thing of all.